Hey everyone, and welcome to Comic Breakdown. Now today we are going to be getting into Future State, and this issue is going to be Future State, The Next Batman, issue number 1. Now if you guys are going to be new to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you want to get all caught up on everything Future State that's going to be releasing, be sure to check out my playlists in the description and at the top of the video. It's going to give you everything you need when it comes to the Future State event. Now, most people know kind of how this issue is going to play out. We all know that Tim Fox is the next Batman. But the really awesome story that comes out of this issue is the Arkham Knights. Coming out looking like freaking Optimus Prime mixed with King Arthur. And it is just absolutely phenomenal. I can't wait to get into that a little bit more with you guys. Also, one last thing before we dive into this issue, I will be doing a podcast. It will be Comic Breakdown and more. We will be covering everything from the weekly comic pools of DC and Marvel to the weekly TV shows, the movie releases, animated series, anything you can think about that's comic book, geek related, nerd related, however you want to phrase it. We will be covering every single bit of it. We're going to go in detail about the comics, a little bit more of a review for you guys. So once that's up and live, I'll be sure to leave a link in the description. I would love for you guys to come check out our first episode that is going to air on Friday at the very latest. I'm aiming for Thursday, but we're going to say probably Friday. So without further ado, let's dive into this issue. So diving into this one, we're getting a little understanding of exactly what has happened to Gotham City, because it's turned into a police state. Drones constantly flying overhead, facial recognition cameras on every single corner, and everything's under the control of the Magistrate, a private security force that patrols Gotham with orders to shoot to kill anybody wearing a mask. But of course, Gotham still needs its Batman. And this is where we see Batman descend upon a crook. And they start really just duking it out here, and Batman gets the upper hand. But all Batman was trying to do was pull his face mask off, because he just doesn't want this guy getting shot. And this is when the cops show up, the GCPD. And they go to try to detain him, but he takes off. And the cops realize that the man that he had knocked down and ripped the mask off of was actually the East Side rapist for Gotham City. And so even though, he feels like that guy's life may not have been worth much, it doesn't constitute people being shot just because they're wearing a mask, because that sets a precedent that anybody can be shot just because they're wearing a mask. And that's a dangerous, dangerous path to take. Now we pick up in Little Santa Prica, and we're seeing Bane's kind of little cult following, the Bane Lidos. And they're trying to recruit 2 new kids into their ranks, and handing them a gun, telling them they just have to kill somebody. Once they kill somebody, then they're in. And so they drive around looking for somebody to take on. And they keep mentioning that they're in hype territory, and they're looking for one of the hype soldiers. And they pull up on this guy, and they go to shoot him. But that guy pulls out a gun, and it just goes sideways so fast. But Batman arrives, saves his life, and then ends up smashing the windshield of this car, causing them to crash, and they all pile out. And Batman goes and chases down the 2 boys and just, takes the gun from them, lets them know, like, they can find a different path. They need to take the masks off and go be kids. Like, get out of this life while you can. Like, stay away from these kind of people. This isn't the path you want to go, because you could have easily ended up dead tonight. And this is when the Magistrates show up, and they start taking shots without even caring who is in the way. And Batman gets him and those 2 kids out of there. And for Batman, this was a good day, because he was able to save 2 kids' lives. And any day you could save a life is a good day. Now, for our little side stories that are within of this comic, this is The Outsiders. And we have Katana and The Signal, aka Duke Thomas. And Duke Thomas is hightailing it as the Magistrate is right on his butt. And they're trying to make it to the outside. And as they jump over the bridge, Katana meets the Magistrate soldiers and lets them know that anybody that crosses her line, she's taking their soul. And they think it's a joke at first, and they try shooting at her, and she blocks every single one of the bullets and takes down these soldiers like they're nothing. And this is where we pick up with Duke Thomas and him bringing these people to safety because the magistrate had tagged them and they had gone to kick in their doors. They're essentially threatening their families. They just weren't safe anymore with the magistrate. And this is where Katana takes off and she's just like, you wasted my time with doing this. Next time, don't waste my time. And then she takes off and her jetpack runs out, but she runs through this warehouse of magistrate soldiers like it's absolutely nothing. It's completely and utterly brutal. And then this is when she sees Caliber. And these two start duking it out. But Caliber's enhanced because he's been essentially stocked full of cybernetic abilities to make him a super soldier, if you will. And so these two start really dueling it out. And it looks like Katana might actually lose here. But then we see some black lightning fall from the sky and hit Caliber and everybody around. And we learn that it's Jefferson Pierce, aka Black Lightning. But for whatever reason, he's been cursed and he's stuck in this state. But he comes with a message that Signal has somebody traveling with him that works for the magistrate. And then our next issue picks up, or not next issue, but our next little sub issue within this issue picks up with the Arkham Knights, or the Knights of Arkham, if you will. And they're really working on the same pretext that everybody else is, working against the magistrate because they've come to enslave the people. And we find out the leader of the Knights is known as Astrid, but that's not the only individuals here. We have Dr. Phosphorus, we have Clayface, we have Two-Face. Essentially, all of these guys broke out of Arkham at one point in time, and they saw the chaos that the city had dove into and how bad Gotham had gotten. So they want to bring back some kind of normalcy and stability to the people. And it's got to be bad when you have the villains teaming up and creating something as awesome as this to be able to combat something even worse than them. And the whole point of this little section is to give us an introduction to them, and as well, they're traveling to try to rescue Croc from the magistrate. And so with having him rescued, they head back to Wayne Manor and they give Croc the ability to heal up, and everybody gets kind of a break here. Now Gotham is broken up into sections, and each section has a commander, if you will, a peacekeeper, and their section is Peacekeeper 12. He's the leader of this area. And after everybody's all healed up, they go out for their little attack. And there ends up being a giant brawl between the Magistrate and the Arkham Knights. And the Knights of Arkham end up getting the upper hand, and they win this fight, taking down the region leader. So John Ridley drops us into issue number 2 with the new Batman investigating a murder. Because while the city may look like it's thriving, at least during the daytime, you have a huge restaurant scene, live music, the skyline at sunset. Batman's telling us just how amazing it really is during the day. But once the sun goes down, Gotham has little more to offer than violence and murder. And so as Batman comes up to this crime scene, he sees this individual dead on the ground, blood still fresh. Police haven't arrived yet, which means this hasn't been reported. The drones haven't picked it up yet, and this just recently happened. And this is where he sees a surveillance camera behind him. And this part, I really feel like this is how we know this guy just isn't meant for the role of Batman, because he uses an explosive to get into this building. You gotta think there's some kind of easier way to get in here when it's just some random building on the side of the street. And even in the panel, it looks like that there's a window off to the left. And seemingly, this is simply just a coffee shop. So why the theatrics of throwing an explosive onto a coffee shop makes absolutely no sense to me. But we see Batman run in, check out their surveillance, and see two individuals that set up a planned attack. And they're wearing some polygon masks. And these masks are essentially designed to beat facial recognition AI. And so now with the images of the perps finally in his hands, he sends it to Val. And he asks Val to try and find their location. Now, Batman originally thought he had a couple minutes before the magistrate would arrive. But they're getting better, they're getting faster, and they arrived 40 seconds sooner. And Batman is now trapped inside of there with them. And this is where he fights his way out, but using non-lethal, because at the end of the day, he sees them as people just doing their job, which I don't know if I can agree with, considering they are the magistrate, and they're literally putting Gotham City into a police state. Regardless if you're just following orders or not, that's that's exactly what the Nazis had said post-World War II. But with this, he makes his way out of the coffee shop and into the street. And this is where he's met by reinforcements of the Magistrate. And nothing he is using non-lethal is working. So unless he wants to kick it up a notch and go lethal, use fatal force, he's going to have to hightail it. And that's exactly what he does. But he takes a round to the side before making it to his motorcycle and getting the heck out of there. And it seems to be that they've been tracking his phone. So now Batman is essentially having to use burner phones and one call and ditching it. Now, this could be a jab at how unprepared he is to be Batman, or this could be a compliment to the Magistrate and how quickly they're able to coordinate and use things like cell phone detection and tracking on the cell phone. And so Batman goes to hideout. Though he was shot in the side, the suit with its compression packs built in are stopping him from bleeding out. And this is when he gets the notification of the location of the two individuals that beat that man to death in the street. And at this point, Batman is not even sure if he's able to take on these two psychopaths. Like, he's literally shot in the side. He's not sure if he's even going to be able to fight. But he's hoping that fear is going to play a part. Fear of the bat symbol. Fear of the Batman. Hopefully that alone will make them surrender, but it doesn't. And our two perps attack him aggressively, but Batman's able to put these guys down. And then that's when one of them takes off the helmet and takes off her hood and lets him know that they give up. And this is where Batman asks them why. Why did they murder this individual? And then they tell us their story. The reason why they brutally murdered this guy in the street. And it lets us know that this guy was a pedophile. He would go online, groom young children, and then meet them in real life and do things to them. And one of those children happened to be their daughter. He had met her on social media. He got into her head and got her to come visit him. And then they never saw her again. The police did an investigation, but he was never explicit online. He didn't pay for the ticket himself, and they never found their daughter's body. So the police hands were tied. And so they decided to take justice into their own hands. And the way that the parents see it is he was a murderer and the guilty deserve to be punished. And she turns to him and she says, you know, you're Batman. Don't you believe that? And this is where Jace is really having to find out where his line is, because he definitely believes in justice. He definitely believes the guilty should be punished. And though they don't have 100% certainty that this man did kill their daughter, it's highly probable that that's the case. And so we have Batman very conflicted on this situation. I know me personally, I would let them walk. I'd be like, all right, see you guys later. Like, you guys just killed a pedophile. Nobody cares about that. And Batman tells them, you know, it's still murder. And their response is simply, what else could you do to us? We have literally nothing left. Our little girl was taken from us. What could you take from us that hasn't already been taken? And then this is when we see the arrival of the Magistrate. Now that will be the end for that part. We are going to jump into Batgirls now, following Cassandra Kane and Stephanie Brown. And it picks us up at the Magistrate detention facility. And they're getting the arrival of somebody new, Cassandra Kane. And Cassandra Kane seemingly has been the right hand of Nightwing and the vigilante resistance. And now having her detained, they want information from her. And so they're essentially going to throw her into Gen Pop. And once they feel like she's had enough of a beating from the inmates that want to beat the heck out of her, maybe she'll be more willing to divulge some information to them. And this is where she finds out that her cellmate is none other than Steph. And everyone refers to Steph as a traitor. Something happened. Nightwing deemed her a traitor to the cause, and ever since then, she's essentially been a bad guy. And these two, you know, they sit down and have an aggressive conversation because they've had a falling out for a long time. Cass just doesn't trust her anymore, and by all accounts, she has no reason to. Now, Cass is here for a specific reason. She's trying to find something. There's something here that she needs to find to investigate further. But she learns out real quick that Steph has made it literally impossible for her to actually be able to talk to anybody. and nobody is willing to talk to her, and all of them direct them in the direction of Steph. And so these two finally get somewhere quiet where they're able to talk. And we see a fight that seems like it's been long drawn out. Now, while these two are fighting, Steph is trying to tell Cass something. She's not able to get it out because she's just trying to defend herself this whole time. But we see her stick something into Cass's pocket. And then one of the guards comes in and electrifies them and throws them into solitary. And as Cass gets her food for the day, she sees an earpiece on the tray and puts it in her ear. And this is where her and Steph have a conversation. And Steph lets her know that she was never a traitor. She's always been on the same side. Back when they lost Oracle and Batman perceived dead, she lost hope. And she went to Nightwing, begged him to cast a wider net to work with some of the other Blackcoats to find her. But he refused to do it, said it undermined the whole resistance and everything that they were doing. But he agreed to let her get her hands dirty, to do what was needed on the other side. And so she went deep undercover, was portrayed as a traitor to the resistance. That way she could get deep inside and find out exactly what's going on. And this is when Kaz lets her know that a few months ago they started getting messages. They couldn't track them, not with Oracle gone, but they had seemed genuine. They were simple and effective. The Bat was alive. And the coordinates pointed them to this retention center. And that's when we see a couple cells below Barbara Gordon tied up to some kind of machine. Now, Cass and Steph both believe that Batman could possibly be in this facility below them. They don't know that it's Barbara Gordon. And so they get everybody together and they need to plan a distraction to be able to get to the lower levels. And so we see the beginning of a prison riot. So issue 3 of the next Batman, it picks us up where we left off in the alleyway. Batman is with the two individuals that they believe murdered their daughter. And so Batman is trying to bring them into custody, but they were in masks. So the magistrate has a kill masks on site. And so Batman needs to stall just for a couple seconds. And he raises his hands up and he surrenders to them. But this is the magistrate and they don't care. And they give the order to open fire. And this is where Batman throws 2 EMPs and disables a lot of the drones in the area, causing a distraction enough for him to get in close. And the first thing he takes out are the sentries. And with smoke still in the air, Batman works his way through all of these guys, using weapons within his arsenal to be able to not necessarily kill, but make it to where these guys aren't getting up for quite a while. And this gives them enough time to escape. But little did he know that there was a drone chasing behind him and it blows up his motorcycle. And this is where he picks up a rock and tosses it at the drone, smashing it into bits. So now they're hightailing it on foot. And he tells them, you have an option here. You can go with me and I'll protect you, but I'm still going to turn you into the authorities. Or you can wait here for the magistrate and they will for sure kill you. And so they decide to go with Batman. And this is where we pick up with Peacekeeper number 1. And he's talking to Stans, the guy that was leading the operation that we just saw crumble into pieces. And he's giving him a debriefing of everything that happened. More or less, he's getting his butt chewed because they failed to do what was necessary. And when he brings up the prior Batman, Bruce Wayne Batman, Peacekeeper 1 gets very bent out of shape about it. And I think it's because, Bruce Wayne is technically alive. And this is probably why he has such a strong reaction when anybody mentions the prior Batman. And tells him that him and his team need to redeploy immediately and not come back until they've killed the new Batman. And so picking back up with Batman, they're at what he calls a safe house or a safe-ish house. And it's an old abandoned church. And he asks for their assistance because he took a bullet to the side. And so they need to cauterize the wound. So he takes a flare and hands it to them. They light it and they stick it to his side. It was either this or he bled out. And then this is when we pick up with Lucius Fox and his wife Tanya. Now, with Bruce Wayne gone, Lucius Fox is now running Wayne Enterprises. And she's telling him that she's trying to make sure that the shoot-on-sight laws stand up in court. And with him being Wayne Enterprises now, he's a part of this. And his response is simply, masks don't care about legalities. And in her opinion, at the end of the day, these guys are all bad. And he tells his wife pretty much like, if you can't do your job, then back off and let the peacekeepers do their job. And this is where she storms off. And then we pick up with their daughter and our prior Batwing. And pretty much she's just asking her brother, like, are you Batman? And if you are Batman, could you stop being Batman? Because what you are doing is literally killing our parents. And he tries his best to reassure her that he's not. But she doesn't seem like she's believing it fully. And their family really is just falling apart. And with Jace missing, or, not necessarily missing, but coming back after all of this time, they're still having issues trying to reconnect with one another. And then we pick back up with Batman, and he's pulling out one of his burner phones. That way he can call Detective Chubb, letting her know that he has 2 individuals in his custody that have given a statement saying that they committed the murder of the gentleman on the street earlier this evening. And this is when the husband starts to get a little irritated, and he's like, you said you would help us. And Batman tells him, like, I said I would keep you from being executed, and I will. But at the end of the day, you killed that guy. You can't walk away from that. And so the detective tells him where to meet up, and he lets her know that he'll be there within an hour. And as he gets prepared to go, the husband takes some kind of wooden plank and hits Batman right in the side where he was shot. This causes him to collapse to the ground, and the husband continues to beat him. And as the wife tries to stop him, he throws her off, hitting her in the process, grabbing a rope and wrapping it around Batman's neck. And his thoughts are, I'm not going to jail. I'm not going to let him take us in for killing that POS person. And if we do end up getting caught, maybe they'll give us a break. Maybe they'll give us a break if we kill Batman. And that will be where this issue ends. Now, we will briefly talk about Outsiders and Arkham Knights, though I am going to do a completely separate video for them, and it's going to be the full story. So be sure that you guys are subbed and notified up so you don't miss that. But getting into the Outsiders, we have the Signal giving a really almost political-like speech. A speech to help bring morale to the people and lift them up and give them hope. At the same time, we're seeing a conversation go on between Katana and Black Lightning. And he goes over briefly, but not too much detail about what happened to him. Something about a magician, and that's all we know. He went against a magician at the wrong time for the right reason. And I can only assume that that wizard or magician is Shazam. But as this plays out, we see the Signal running through the town, and he's taken on by a cyborg. Black Lightning puts his energy force into Katana's sword, and Katana and the Signal meet up on the bridge, taking on the Magistrate. And we see Katana using her sword mixed with the power of Black Lightning, and it doing ridiculous damage. Caliber trying to pick it up and wield it, but Black Lightning doesn't let him, and ends up driving the sword right through his chest. And with the Signal seeing Black Lightning in this state, cursed, he's determined to help him, and so he wants to go to Gotham City. And then Arkham Knights. Arkham Knights is actually a lot of fun. It's following Astrid and Two-Face, Croc, a bunch of our villains that escaped Arkham Asylum, and they're doing their best to take on the Magistrate, because at the end of the day, they believe this is their city. And the Magistrate tries setting up a trap for them. They set a high-price weapon pretty much on display, waiting for them, using it as bait. But the team ends up doing something completely different. And though they end up losing Dr. Phosphorus, Astrid drives her sword right through the chest of Peacekeeper 6. And what they went to steal was Batman's bat signal. And they changed it to the sun, because for them it is a beacon of hope. And they don't want people ever losing hope. Alright guys, so getting into issue number 4. It picks us up where we left off, with Batman getting strangled by this guy who killed somebody with his wife, who they believe killed their daughter. And as he sits here with a rope around his neck, he thinks to himself, Like, did the other Batman screw up this badly? Was he messing up this often? Because that's exactly what we're seeing from Jace here. It's him just messing up all the time and letting people get the better of him. But with some quick moves, he's able to break this guy's grip and gives him a good kick. And we see him go flying, only to stand up and pick up what seems to be some kind of 2x4, ready to use it as a weapon against Batman. And Batman tells him, like, you just don't care about justice. You're trying to get away with murder. That's what it's looking like at the end of the day. And he tells him, no, the only thing I'm trying to do here is to save my wife. Because she didn't deal the death blow. She may have thrown a punch or two, but I am the one that's responsible for that man dying. I'm the one that hit him in the head with a hammer. And he pleads with Batman to just let the police know that he was the one who did it. And Batman tells him, just to be real with you, I don't care who did it, you're both going in. And if you try to come at me again, I'll be sure to leave you for the Peacekeepers. And so they head out. They break into a vehicle and make their way, trying to get to City Hall to meet up with Detective Chubb. And on their way, they're met by Peacekeepers. 3 of them riding on motorcycles, guns blazing at the vehicle that Batman has procured. And as they're driving down the road, Batman is doing his best to do evasive maneuvers, hitting the brakes hard, knocking one of these guys off the motorcycle, and then having the woman take 2 magnetic grenades, or EMPs, and throw them out of the vehicle. They land on the other 2 motorcycles, completely disintegrating them, or at least making them crash, and these bikes are literally just falling into pieces. And just when they think they have them off their tail, 2 more vehicles of Peacekeepers show up. And as these Peacekeepers are closing in on Batman, the husband, Eric, realizes that they're not going to make it. They still have 13 blocks to go, and the vehicle is severely damaged and they're losing power. And the only way they're going to be able to make it is getting the Peacekeepers off their tail. And so Eric turns to Batman and tells him to remember that it was him and not his wife who killed that man. And he jumps out of the vehicle with a bomb in his hand. And as the vehicles approach, he presses the button, detonating it and exploding the 2 vehicles with Peacekeepers in them. And as they're continuing down the road, Batman almost runs into a civilian that is standing literally in the middle of the road. Swerving to miss her, they get out of the vehicle and try to make a run for it. But this is when we see Jace Fox's mother, and she sees Batman, and her first thought is to shoot first. Because this is Batman, this is a mask, and her job, her whole existence is to take him down. But as she goes to draw her weapon, he ends up wounding his mother to the point that she's not able to fire at him. And this is when one of the Peacekeepers comes out of the flames. And he tries taking Batman on, but ends up failing miserably. And Batman almost takes it too far. You can see the anger and rage is literally boiling right beneath the surface. But the woman stops him. And this is when they take off. And they meet up with Detective Chubb. Taking the wife into custody, Batman lets them know they also need to look into the gentleman that they had murdered because he is suspected of killing the little girl, and it's more than just a chance that he did it. And this is when Detective Chubbs tells him, I really didn't believe that you were going to survive the night. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about the Magistrate here, and they sent a lot to try to catch him. And this is when Detective Chubbs asks him a question, and she asks him if his suit is bulletproof. And he tells her that it's mostly bulletproof. The kinetic energy from a bullet still makes it hurt a lot. And this is where she pulls out her pistol and shoots Batman right in the chest. Because she's got to make it look as authentic as possible. She has to make it look like she was doing her job. And her job is to take down masks. And then we pick up a little bit later at the hospital. And the whole Fox family is here. Obviously extremely furious that Jace is late to this endeavor. Late to seeing his mother who is sitting in the hospital. But he goes into the room to talk to her. And she tells him that it was Batman. That she had her chance to stop him. But he tried to kill her. And Jace, obviously being Batman, tries to argue the case that, you know, maybe he wasn't just trying to kill you, maybe he was just trying to get you out of the way and stop you from trying to kill him. And in her mind, that's not the case. And he is a menace in her eyes, and he needs to be stopped by any means possible. And that will be the end of this issue. Now, there is a little add-on bonus here. Usually, I let you guys know that we're going to be covering these in another video specifically to those by themselves, but we did cover Batgirls in the last one, so we're going to cover it in this one as well. Alright, so getting into part 2 of Batgirls. The first part let us know that Cass and Steph are both in this detention facility the Magistrates created. And this is taking place several years in the future, 2025 to be exact. And we also learned that they are holding Oracle, aka Barbara Gordon, in the basement of this facility. Now, our Batgirls don't know that, but they believe it to be Batman, and so they're doing what they can to try to break him out. And so Steph, along with all the other inmates, start a riot. They start a riot long enough for Cass to be able to break into the Central Command, essentially center, and be able to give her access to this little hidden location that the Magistrate has. And so we see the entire mess hall of this prison up in arms. Guards doing their best to try to hold off these prisoners, and the prisoners doing their best to keep this riot going as long as possible to buy enough time for Cass to do what she needs to do. And Cass is making her way through this place, ends up knocking out one of the guards and taking his clothes as a disguise. And in the mess hall, they're struggling to stay above. They're staying as strong as they possibly can. And when the cuffs come off, when the restrictions are no longer on them, we see them get a second wave of energy, because this means Cass did her job. She was able to shut down the system, and it takes about 10 minutes to reboot. So this gives her enough time to be able to get to the location where Barbara Gordon is, but it also doesn't play in their favor, because now the guards can literally be as brutal as they want to be. And what we see is our guards really taking it to the next level and shooting these guys with all kinds of different things. And our prisoners are losing this fight. But this is when we see Cass making her way through this facility, opening this door, thinking to find Batman, only for it to be Barbara, aka Oracle. And Cass tells her, "I'm gonna get you out of here," grabbing her and carrying her out. Barbara lets us know that when they hooked the brain up to their system, they didn't realize the connection was going both ways. And though she didn't have any real control, she was able to send vague messages. But anything that wasn't encrypted was open to her mind. So closed circuit camera feeds, reports, and the rest, she just knows the Magistrate is hiding something. But she needs access to a computer to be able to figure out exactly what it is. And so they need to go to the Central Command Center to get computer access. And this is when Cass asks Steph if she's able to hold on just a little bit longer. But the only response she hears is gunshots and silence. And this is when some guards come to attack them, only for Cass and Barbara both to handle these guys like it's nothing. Now Cass is able to get her to a computer system, and she starts clicking away, and she lets us know that she thinks she found Batman, or at least a breadcrumb trail onto where he could possibly be. Now things are not going good in the mess hall, and we can hear this over comms. And so they decide to bring up the feed on the computer of what's going on in the mess hall, only to see that Steph has been taken down. Everybody in here has been taken down by the guards, and they debate on if they should leave or not. But they decide that they're gonna fight back. And this is when Oracle gets an idea. And Oracle broadcasts to everyone in Gotham City. And she says the oracles of an old inscribed wisdom upon the columns of their temple surely bring ruin. The Magistrate knows the power of hatred and fear, and they are sure that they will go on letting them grind their boat into your neck. And she continues on talking about how the Magistrate is no better than Mask. You wanted the Mask gone so bad you accepted everything that came with the Magistrate. But she's here to let you know you don't have to do that. You don't have to accept all of this going on. And while this broadcast is going out, we see the arrival of the Resistance. And the Resistance is made up of Nightwing, Man-Bat, Orphan, Batwoman, Talia al Ghul, and Tim Drake Robin. And they break everybody out of this prison. and they head back to the Resistance Base 2 in Gotham City. And we see Oracle and Nightwing have a real romantic moment, meet back up, hug each other, kiss each other. You know, they're excited to be back together with one another yet again. And this is when we see a conversation between Cass and Steph up on the rooftop. And they're talking about how everybody is Resistance now. There is no good side or bad side. It is all just one side. And it's just a really heartwarming and heartfelt moment that we see between these two as the future looks just a little bit brighter with this Resistance forming to fight back for Gotham City. And that will be the end of that issue. Alright guys, so this closes out the next Batman future state. So let me know what you guys think. How did you like Jace Fox's Batman? I'm sure we're definitely going to see more of this later on. You know, most of these lines are going to be continuing in some form or fashion, like the Teen Titans has the Teen Titan Academy and things of that nature coming out. So it's only expected we will see more of Batman Jace. Personally, I felt like he was very sloppy. More sloppy than Bruce Wayne was. Not necessarily that that's a bad thing. You know, you're supposed to, it's your first year. You're supposed to be sloppy. But sometimes, you know, it shows that he doesn't have the same kind of background as Bruce Wayne does. Not that that makes him a worse or not as good as Batman. Just that, you know, it's definitely a different style of Batman. And I'm not 100% on board with it just yet, but I am excited to see it move forward. We will see more of him in the next issue that we're going to be covering, which is Nightwing, and that will be closing out the Nightwing issue. So yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. If you have not yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video for me. If you enjoy good comic book podcasts, check out Comic Breakdown and More podcasts available on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We just dropped a new episode yesterday talking about Justice League Trailer, WandaVision, and all the issues that came out last week that we covered here on the channel. If you are in the Medford, Oregon area, be sure to check out Rogue City Comics. Awesome comic book shop with tons of awesome stuff, indie comics, tons of figurines, tons of action figures, tons of gallery stuff, as well as all the latest comics. So be sure to check them out. And until the next video,